Right now, we're experiencing a resurgence in intolerance, nationalism, racism. You were a reporter, an active reporter, and you were in the midst of the civil rights movement. You covered Dr. Martin Luther King.
I did.
And you just mentioned the Klan. One of your assignments was to go and attend and report on a Klan rally.
Several
Klan rallies. Right. And I think that's a perspective that, first of all, that must have been, I imagine that would be a frightening experience to have had. In the 1960s, you're part of the media and you're at a Klan rally.
Scary stuff. I'd be the first to say so. But all I could think of, Conan, during and after that time was the fear that I felt, the terror at a Klan rally. What it must have felt like for families of color to have those rallies happening in their neighborhood. And what did parents tell their children? So whatever fears and concerns I had paled by comparison of knowing what it was for families of color.
You mentioned before that this is the first president we've had that has waged an active campaign against the media. We've had other presidents and political figures kind of take a stab at that.
Well, and President
George Wallace, when he was running
Definitely.
for president in 68 and 72, would often use the trick of saying, there's a lot of reporters here, but they're not going to report on what I'm really talking about because they're from the New York Times and they lie. They did it. Nixon, who you reported on, and you reported on throughout the entire Watergate scandal, used to talk about the media and try and distance the American people from the media. But you think Trump's taken it to a whole new level.
Well, the facts show that he's taken it to a whole new level.
Yeah.
You're quite right. Trump has taken several pages out of George Wallace's racist campaign of 1968 and on in 1972. And make no mistake, President Nixon disliked to a point of hate the press. And he did have a system of trying to intimidate press people. Yeah. But out of his own mouth, nothing compared to what President Trump is doing. That these personal attacks on individual reporters, you remember when he ridiculed the reporter who had physical challenges.
Disabilities,
and saying that these press people are enemies of the American people. This is very dangerous kind of language. Yeah. It's reminiscent of authoritarian regimes in other countries. Yeah. And one reason the subtitle of what unites us is Reflections on Patriotism. You know, there's a difference between patriotism and nationalism. Yeah. We don't want to go into a deep conversation about it here, but patriotism is willingness to die for your country, loving your country, but recognizing its mistakes and it needs to get better. Nationalism is more beating on your chest saying, we're super to everybody in the world. It's an important difference.
Well, nationalism will destroy us eventually. You know, that patriotism is actually caring enough, as you say, to, you know, about the system and trusting in democracy. Well, and there's elements of nationalism that are treason.
Well, no, Conan, you have an extraordinary young audience, and nobody wants to talk down to them, but I do think it's important that they understand that all this talk about nationalism, that economic nationalism, extreme economic nationalism in the 1920s led to the Great Depression. Racial nationalism, Aryan nationalism, led to Adolf Hitler. And we want to be very careful of going too far in the direction of nationalism and not far enough in the direction of patriotism.